Supermax Corporation Berhad is a company that produces high-quality medical gloves and became the main worldwide company that produces and manufactures clinical gloves. It was set up at 1987 and it was founded by Datuk Seri Tan Lee Tai and his wife Datin Seri Tan Lee Tan. So their humble beginning in the Supermax at the end led to their fantasy to create the premium quality glove of their own. So in 1989, they began to build their first office with simply a little group of workers. So nowadays, Supermax Group has expanded to 165 nations around the globe, from United States of America to the South Pacific nation, and it has more than 12 manufacturing factory lines in fabricating different kinds of natural rubber and latex gloves to be traded around the world. Throughout the years, the group have gotten various awards and their vision is to be the global market leader in the manufacture of medical gloves, while their mission is to be the global brand of choice among the users of medical gloves.
In terms of liquidity ratio, this ratio is significant to determine if the company able to meet its short-term obligation or not. In context of current ratio, Supermax has above RM1 of its current asset in both years for every RM1 of current liabilities. In year 2019, Supermax acquired RM1.056 and getting better in year 2020 at RM1.270. Hence, Supermax is in better position to meet the short-term obligation with short-term asset in both years. Meanwhile, for the quick ratio, Supermax has only 0.744 in year 2019. However, in year 2020, Supermax has improved its current asset to RM1.149, excluding closing inventory and prepaid expenses, for every RM1 of its current liabilities. Thus, Supermax has enough current asset to cover its current liabilities in the year 2020 as compared to the year 2019. Moving on next to the cash ratio. A ratio not lower than 0.5 to 1 is usually preferred. Somehow, Supermax seems to be in difficulties in year 2019, whereby it's only acquired RM0.289, which is below than 0.5. However, Supermax then managed to overcome it by achieving a high ratio in 2020, which is at RM0.787. Therefore, Supermax has shown its capability to pay off the debt with cash and cash equivalent better in year 2020 than in year 2019.
Now, I will explain on leverage ratios. Firstly, debt ratio is total liabilities divided by total asset. Debt ratio for the year 2020 is 51.61%, which is higher than 38.45% in 2019, whereby this indicates that 51.61% is financed by debt. In 2020, the company have 39.83 times to cover its interest out of its operating profit as compared to 8.75 times in year 2019. Moreover, as for debt to equity ratio, 107% debt in 2020 is used compared to the total equity, which is higher than 62.46% in 2019. Based on debt ratio to equity ratio and time interest earned, Supermax Corporation is considered high leverage for the year 2020.
Efficiency ratios measures a company's ability to use its assets and manage its liabilities effectively in the current period or in the short term. Based on the table, we could see that Supermax Corporation is more efficient in 2019 as compared to 2020 in accordance to their inventory turnover, average collection period, total assets turnover, receivable turnover, and fixed asset turnover. As for inventory turnover, Supermax Corporation changed its inventory in 2020 for 9.47 times more frequently than in the year 2019, which is 5.64 times. Nevertheless, the Supermax Corporation took 58 days in 2020 for their average collection period in order to collect its debt from the debtor, which is longer than in the year 2019, which is 41 days only. Furthermore, in 2019, Supermax Corporation generated 83% of its sales from 1 ringgit of its total assets, higher than total asset turnover in year 2020, which is 67 cents. On the other hand, Supermax Corporation achieved better performance in 2020 in regards to their fixed asset turnover because they generated 1 ringgit and 65 cents of its sale from 1 ringgit of its total assets, which is higher than the fixed asset turnover in year 2019, which is 1 ringgit and 27 cents. In 2019, the receivable turnover of Supermax Corporation is 8.85 times, which is higher than the receivable turnover in 2020, which is 6.25 times.
In measuring the effectiveness of the firm in using the asset to generate profit, we have identified that Supermax have generated RM32.24 of gross profit margin in year of 2019, which is a little bit higher as to compare in the year of 2020, where they only generate RM3 ringgit and 34 from 100 ringgit of sales. Next, Supermax generate RM8 ringgit of net profit margin in the year of 2019, which is lower than in year 2020, because in 2020 they managed to able to boost up their net profit margin to RM25 ringgit and 9 cents. As to compare with the return on asset, in 2019 Supermax only able to generate RM6.68 of net profit from 100 ringgit investment of total asset, which is actually lower as to compare with in 2020, because in 2020 the return on asset that Supermax Corporation able to achieve is RM16.69. On the other hand, in year 2019, from 100 ringgit investment on equity by shareholder, Supermax actually managed to generate 10 ringgit and 85 cents of net profit, which is considered lower as to compare with in 2020, because in 2020 they able to generate RM34.49. Last but not least, we also identify the operating profit margin. So the operating profit margin in year 2020 is 32.71%, which is higher than in 2019, because in 2019 they only able to achieve 12.49%, which show that the productivity of the asset in providing return to both shareholder and creditor is better in the year of 2020.
To determine a company's performance in terms of its ability to pay short-term debt, liquidity ratio can be applied. If a company faces some problems in maintaining good liquidity ratios, some measures can be taken. The first measure is managing debt wisely in order to decrease the amount of debt. Secondly, the company should monitor its inventory level and evaluate the inventory to ensure it's being managed efficiently. Thirdly, make sales discounts on products. Sales discount could attract customers to buy more. In this study, Supermax Corporation Berhad generally shows a decent increase in their liquidity ratios. The increases of the ratios helped by the demand of their primary product, which is medical gloves. The demand for medical glove is rising due to the pandemic COVID-19. To ensure the performance keep on improving, Supermax are recommended to manage their short-term debt wisely. Take the current situation as an opportunity to avoid unnecessary debt.
The level of debt incurred by a certain company against other accounts in its income statement, balance sheet, or cash flow statement can be measured by leverage ratio. There are certain measures can be taken by a company to improve their leverage. Firstly, the company need to issue new additional stock. When a company need more cash inflows, the company may issue new shares to increase their capital. Secondly, the company can consider selling its assets or leasing the asset back to the owner. This measure can increase cash inflows that can be used to pay its debt. Last but not least, the company can back to basic measures by increase their sales. The positive impact of increasing sales is reducing the debt and enhances the debt to total asset ratio. According to the leverage ratios, it shows that the Supermax Corporation can be considered as a high leverage firm in 2020 compared to the previous period. This situation is the direct effect from the increases of total liabilities made in the FYE 2020. Based on the current situation, it is recommended that the Supermax Corporation to lift up their sales, ensure all the debts met during this pandemic can be satisfied with all the revenues they made.
A company's ability to use its assets and liabilities can be measured by using the efficiency ratio. Improvement measures that can be considered by a company to improve efficiency ratio is by increasing the revenues or sales. Second measure that can be considered is by decreasing the expenses, maintaining the expenses as low as it can be managed. The easiest way to lower the cost is by utilizing the workforce. Throughout the analysis, Supermax seems to be more efficient in 2019 compared to 2020. The average collection period in 2019 was better than 2020. They took longer period to collect debt from the debtor in 2020. It can be assumed that most of the clients have difficulties on paying the debt during this pandemic. It is recommended to Supermax to hire expertise in order to collect their debt. But it is not a big issue for Supermax because most probably the whole industry is facing the same issues. When the demand keep on increasing and some of the customers delay their payment.
A company capability to make income from its revenue, operating costs, and balance sheet asset can be determined by using the profitability ratio. So there are some improvement strategies that can be considered by a company if they encounter with low profitability margin. The basic strategy is by increasing the amount of money generated. It is either by increasing the sale of product or services and by lowering cost of operation. Next strategy is by maintaining the amount of inventory kept and bought. Bad inventory management can engage with a decent profitability. Lastly, a company can engage with a decent supplier. Remember, good relationship with supplier will increase the company's performance because the supplier will give the company a quality, material, and priority in delivery. In terms of profitability, it seems that Supermax Corporation will most probably did not encounter any downturn on its profit. It was expected that the Supermax will continue to deliver its performance and continuously increase their profit for the year 2020, as the pandemic COVID-19 would lead to a higher demand of their product. These pandemics will eventually be their biggest opportunity to increase their selling prices without incurring any additional costs in production and also its operation.
So, in conclusion, the main objective of capital management is to ensure the Supermax Corporation can continue to support its operation and maximizing the value of shareholders. So, Supermax Corporation recorded a significant increase in the net profit to RM 789.52 million for the first quarter closed on 30 September 2020, recording it as the highest net profit margin ever recorded at 60.1% in the quarter. So, according to the filing with the Bursa Malaysia, the glove manufacturer also experienced an increase in average sale price each month, starting in March 2020, for its production and also distribution division. As a result of the sharp increase in the sales, Supermax Corporation has a net cash position of 2.36 billion at 30 September 2020. So, their products are sold in the various countries and 58% of the production under its brand is exported through its distribution center. And therefore, Supermax Corporation states that the company had developed expansion plan to build a total of 5 glove production plant by 2022.